Good evening. I'm Lisa Garoot, a member of the Dubuque League of Women Voters. The League is a nonpartisan political organization which encourages informed and active citizen participation in government. Membership is open to any citizen age 18 years of age or older. We would like to thank the 4th Ward City Council candidates for their participation this evening and for their invaluable gift to Dubuque by being candidates for public office. There are 7 candidates running for the position of 4th Ward Dubuque City Council. Paul Kern could not be present this evening, and Tim Flynn has decided not to join us. Alphabetically here tonight are Carla Anderson, Hillary Dalton, Eric Kronstadt, R.S. Stewart, and Kathy Wethall. Ms. Anderson, we'll begin with you. Please tell us your top 3 priorities for the city of Dubuque.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for having this forum. It's nice to be here. My top 3 priorities are housing issues, the projects that have started on paper only, and childcare.
Thank you. Ms. Dalton.
Good evening. Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you to Dubuque citizens who are tuned into this opportunity. It's a wonderful experience being part of the democratic process at the grassroots level. My top 3 priorities as the representative from Ward 4 on the City Council are going to be providing affordable, accessible childcare for parents who are in need of this very rare resource. My second priority is to protect our parks and our public spaces through better curation and also through protecting the wildlife in those areas. And then my third priority is to demystify the process of local government.
Thank you. Mr. Kronstadt.
Good evening. Thank you, League of Women Voters, and I'd also like to thank the citizens of Dubuque who are tuning in and who have submitted questions. My top 3 priorities are to look at housing. We have a lot of housing that is in rough shape. I'd like to see if we could improve that and also construct new housing. I'd like to also grow our small businesses. I've seen many small businesses popping up over the recent years, and I would love to see that continue. And my last point is fiscal responsibility. We're in a time where we're in a pandemic. We seem to be coming to a different point, and I know many families, including my own, are looking at and adjusting finances, and I feel like the city should also do the same in order to best use taxpayer money for this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart, what are your top 3 priorities?
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and the citizens watching us at home. My first priority is to be a voice for various citizens who don't feel they're being represented on the City Council right now. I don't want to represent a specific group or interest, but I want all residents to feel heard. I also am very interested in housing with having affordable daycare close by. I want to make sure that as we're doing redevelopment around areas of City of Dubuque, looking at the Central Avenue corridor and the Millwork District, that it remains affordable for people who are already living and working in those areas. Finally, as economic recovery goes on, we're coming out of the pandemic. I want to make sure that that economic recovery continues. And we, again, continue to do what we can to support the businesses that have managed to make it through the pandemic, but may still be struggling.
And finally, Ms. Wethel.
Hello, I'm Katie Wethel, and it is a pleasure to be with all of you tonight, both here and at home. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. I'm here tonight because I feel called to serve my community in a new way. I feel that there are three main overall forces that we must tackle for our future here in Dubuque. One is a strong economy. When I say a strong economy, we need a strong workforce in order for that to be provided. How do we have a strong workforce? We have a community of choice. What I mean by that could be many things. To me, it means safety. Police and fire must have the personnel, the equipment, and the training that they need. We need to value our indoor and outdoor recreational options here in Dubuque. In addition, nurturing the arts, enhancing and valuing our historic structures. Thirdly, we must continue to work on our public and private partnerships that have been so effective here in Dubuque and set us apart in the Midwest in our success. I hope to share more with you tonight, voters at home. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Our next question is about the area that you hope to represent. We ask each of you to describe Ward 4 in 3 words and explain why you chose those words. And Ms. Dalton, we'll start with you.
I'm sorry, would you repeat the question?
Sure.
We're all wrestling
Can
with
you
our
describe
masks.
Ward 4 using about 3 words and explain why you chose those words?
Yes. Challenged, diverse, historic. I've been the Washington Neighborhood Resource Coordinator for about 4 years now. And in that capacity, I have had countless opportunities to meet with neighbors and listen to their concerns. They face numerous challenges, and I will explain briefly that if Ward 4 is the largest and most diverse of the wards, the Washington neighborhood is the very heart of Ward 4. It's the oldest, most historic neighborhood in Dubuque. And we have a high rate of transient members of the neighborhood who find it very challenging to find sustainable employment, for instance, and really good, affordable housing and childcare. So many challenges within Ward 4, historic for reasons that I just pointed to. And my third word, I'm blanking on for just a moment. Diverse, thank you, Ms. Jean. Ward 4 is diverse. It has the largest population spread of the 4 wards. It also has the widest spectrum of per capita income. This makes it very representative of a wide
Thank you, Ms. Dalton.
cross-section of Dubuque.
Mr. Kronstedt, what are the 3 words that you would use to describe Ward 4?
Thank you. The 3 words that come to mind when I think of Ward 4, as I've been talking with many of the neighbors, are expansive, varied, and rebirth. I would say expansive, obviously, trying to, as I've tried to knock on as many doors as possible, there are quite a number of neighbors to meet, and I've really enjoyed that process. And each of those neighbors, I would say, has a different situation in life. It's very varied. There's not, even though they live next to each other, they're at different places. They have different concerns, and I would just like to see how we could, address some of those concerns that affect this entire ward and our community. And finally, the last word is rebirth. We're already seeing it in the Millwork District, where old buildings are being given new life and new purpose. And I would like to see that continue to happen here. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart, and just a reminder that we do need to keep our masks on when we're not speaking. Ms. Stewart.
Heart of Dubuque. When you look at it, it's the heart or the core of the city. All the other wards fan out around it. When you look at maps of Dubuque, I'm a historian and I look at old maps quite a lot. It really was the city up until about the middle of the last century. I live in the Fenland neighborhood. That's where I grew up. I was born and raised in a union household in the 4th Ward, in a house that was built in 1857. I manage a rental property that was built in the 1890s. So the 4th Ward is in my blood. I drive up and down the hills of it every day. I walk around it every day. And I've seen it as the neighborhood I've lived in has changed. I went to Lincoln School. I substitute teach there now sometimes. I've gotten to see as the neighborhood students have moved in. One of my former students from NICC, where I taught a few years ago, now lives in the neighborhood. She's Marshallese, and she's introduced me. I've learned things from her, like there are 8 Marshallese churches in Dubuque. Some of them are in the 4th Ward, some of them are in the 3rd Ward. And so I think it really is the heart of Dubuque, where our diverse communities are, where we have different communities coming in that we need to pay attention to. Again, we have so much historic property there that needs to be loved and restored.
Thank you. Ms. Wethel.
I'd say rich in history, vibrant as a downtown, and dynamic. When I say rich in history, when my husband and I moved back here, we bought a home not as old as RRS's. Ours was 1901, but it's where we're raising our children on Fenland Place. The structures of the Millwork District, including Dupaco's update of the Beautiful Voices building that has been brought to life. Vibrant, whether it's the arts, our museum, our casino, or culinary experiences. The vibrant downtown of Dubuque is the 4th Ward, and all of Dubuque is grateful for it, I believe. It is a quality of life. Dynamic. The 4th Ward is where many projects will be starting in the next 2 years that this council seat will be acting upon. Whether it is concerns regarding transportation, parking, that is smart, technology-based, rail line, transportation, but in all, there are things that are moving in the 4th Ward that keep Dubuque what she is today. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, how would you describe the 4th Ward?
Diverse, housing, and trust. Diverse because the 4th Ward is diverse in certain neighborhoods, but not in government. Something that needs to change, that I've heard from many people in town, is there is no representation. Everything is cookie cutter, and I hope to change that. Housing, poor housing conditions are mainly in the 4th Ward. Landlords are not cleaning up their properties. People are having a hard time finding something affordable that actually looks good. I do know there's an issue between the landlords and tenants. The tenants don't know their rights. That's no excuse for the landlord not to do what he's supposed to do. And trust. There's a huge lack of trust in the community between the haves and the have-nots, or the presumed haves and have-nots. Our first responders should not have to be harassed 1 minute and they get a phone call the next minute when somebody needs them, then they're loved. Our first responders are not respected. We need to build trust in this community, and I'm the person to build that trust.
Thank you. You've all just explained why you're running for City Council and what Ward 4 means to you. Now we'd like to turn our attention to the people of Ward 4. In what ways do you represent the people of Ward 4? And in other words, what makes you the ideal representative to those you seek to serve? Mr. Kronstadt, you're the first one to answer this question.
Thank you very much, Lisa. So I see a number of skills that I have that make me an excellent candidate for this position. I'm very big with numbers, forecasting, that's part of my job. But the part of my job that people don't always hear about is that I'm a really good listener. I'm really good at listening to friends, family, and I've had a lot of conversations with neighbors who are concerned with, are our taxes gonna go up? Or there's cars that are going down this street really fast, and I have small children. And I hear that. I don't know if all of those things should be addressed at the city council level or need to be, but I want to hear those voices. I want to hear our neighbors and what they have to say. And I'd like to bring it here to the city council so that we can see what we have in common and see what we can do to make this place that we call home better. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart.
So as I mentioned, I live in the Fenland neighborhood, and I've seen how it's changed over the years. When I was younger, it was mostly single-family homes. Now the property right across the street from ours is an Airbnb. And when I travel, I like to stay in Airbnbs because who doesn't like to stay in a house? I know people get concerned a little bit when you have Airbnbs moving into the neighborhood because that's a house that used to be available as a rental property for someone to live in that's now being turned into a short-term rental. And again, that affects the stability of the neighborhood. And that also, as we've all been talking about, we have a lack of affordable housing in some of our neighborhoods in Dubuque. And if a house isn't available for rent, that affects the affordable housing. I've also seen it as I've been helping some of my friends in neighborhoods look for housing. As an agent of our rental property, I try to be fair and make sure our rent stays low and we keep it up to date. But I've looked at some of the other rental properties around the neighborhood and helping people look within our neighborhood and also downtown. And I know that as a landlord and an agent myself, you have to go through training from the city of Dubuque. But it seems like they're not really enforcing their standards, or maybe you just do the training and then they forget it. And so I feel like as someone who's gone through these trainings that the city offers, who's out there doing these jobs, I can relate to what people are going through.
Thank you. Ms. Wethel, your answer.
What makes my candidacy unique? I can't say what others feel about Dubuque, but I love Dubuque and it is my forever home. My husband and I met here in the 1990s at Clark. We moved away and we came back to grow our family, become part of community, and to grow our careers. I am a nurse practitioner. I work at Medical Associates in the internal medicine department. There, my job is to listen, to help my patients problem solve, and to come up with solutions for them together. I think that skill set is a unique way that I could serve on the city council. As a mother of 3, I see the current setting of Dubuque in a unique lens that I do not think is presently represented at the city council table. That lens, I think, will serve as a working mother to talk about daycare. I know that I could not have gone back to my job and served my patients if I did not have that available to me. Certain ideas about the wellness of our community, whether it is poverty, being able to find food or housing, shelter, health, those are issues I deal with every day, and I hope to do it for all of Dubuque. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
I relate to the members of our community because since I've been here, I've served as the Vice Chair of the Human Rights Commission, a member of the Dubuque Community Police Relations, a member of the board with Habitat for Humanity, and a board member for the Small Business Alliance of Dubuque. As I've served on these boards, I've noticed a perspective missing in the conversations. I want to use my experience from the military, corrections officer, and the union carpenter that's culminated with a master's degree in business administration as a bridge to reach out to everyone. Reaching out to everyone and bridging the gap that is here in this town is what's going to make the Fourth Ward stronger.
Thank you. Finally, Ms. Dalton.
Thank you. One word that you've heard by many of us already this evening is diverse or diversity. I bring a very diverse personal history to my position, hopefully on the ward council. I'm not a native Dubuquer, and I know that Dubuquers who are natives are very proud of the fact that they are natives. But I tell you what, I got here as fast as I could. I had the opportunity when I, as a single parent who had experienced homelessness and also as a survivor of domestic violence, was able to take advantage of government services at an earlier point in my life, and I was very thankful for those services. So when I chose to move to Dubuque, I determined that I would devote a large part of my resources to giving back through public service. I'm a commissioner on the Housing Commission, on the Community Development Advisory Commission. I was the vice president of the chair at Crescent Community Health Center that made the determination to expand services and bricks and mortar and got us into the current facility. I know what it's like to be a single parent without a large network to give you support, and I know that a lot of parents in the Fourth Ward experience that also. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a few more questions that continue the theme of how to best represent the people of Ward 4. That said, we'd like to change things up a little bit, and rather than asking everyone the same questions, we'll ask three of you, or two of you, one question, and then the next three will have a different but similar question. So, Ms. Stewart, you have the first question. If elected, how will you stay in touch with your Ward 4 constituents so that you can best represent them?
I will use every method of communication available. So, of course, phone, mail, email. I have a Facebook page. I'm not on Instagram yet, but I'm sure I could set one up. I have a Twitter page, so people can tweet at me if they want to. So I intend to be accessible in whatever way people want to contact me. I'll try to go to as many forums as possible. I know there is some that I've been invited to that I haven't been able to make because of my meeting schedule. I'm on a few different boards. I'm treasurer for the Captain Robert Martin Commemoration Committee, which meets every Thursday evening at 6 p.m. So unfortunately that conflicts with some of the meetings I've been invited to, but I'm willing to try to make as many meetings as I can. I also, on the door of my office at Loris, I have a little envelope stuck in where people can leave notes for me. So I suppose if every other method of communication failed, someone could always just come stick a note in my envelope on the door of my office at Loris.
Ms. Wethel, same question.
I will come to you. My eyes are open, my door is open, my cell phone is on all of my campaign literature, including my Facebook page, my website. But I will tell you that I have had the privilege to speak with our fire, our police unions. I am scheduled to meet with the Dubuque Black Men's Coalition. I am ready to come to you, learn from you what you need from me. I'm a representative of a constituency, and I take that responsibility very seriously. I will answer your email, I will answer your call, and I will be present for you when you need me. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question for our final three candidates is how would you make decisions and vote on city policy in the event that you personally disagree with what you're hearing from your constituents? So, Ms. Anderson, you will answer this question first.
Well, I want to work with all the members of council peacefully, and I understand that there are times where we will disagree. Disagreements can be good if you can talk them out. What I would do, there are certain policies now that I don't agree with, plain and simple. It won't be a complete no vote. I want more explanation. I would like to know where the taxpayers' money is going. I would like people to be able to be transparent and explain to these people what a GO bond is, what a partnership really means. Let the taxpayers know that this is your tax dollars at work. We have projects that have been started since 2017 on paper. For instance, the Five Flags Center right now would be a no vote. It's on information from 2017, and if we go by it now, it's an inflation rate of $1.582 million. That's taxpayer money. Why do we need a parking garage? Make it smaller. Release some of the ones that are sitting there right now not being used because they're rented out. Let's be more responsible. Let's figure out something better to vote on, like childcare, food deserts, the lack of information that is in this neighborhood. That's where our money can better be spent, and that's what I want to support wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Ms. Dalton.
Thank you. As I see this position as a city council member, they're the constituents that you are representing and for whom you're speaking. And then you're working within the larger body of the council itself. So you, as that fulcrum point, may indeed have opinions that differ with your neighbors, with your constituents, and with your fellow council members. I think it's very important to serve humbly and to not push one's own opinions and agenda as a public servant, because it is about service. So I already do that as a commission member. My door is open. People know that they can talk to me about anything that's on their minds, and I bring their concerns to my respective board commission in those meetings. I've learned also as a commission member and also being on a board of directors that it's much more beneficial to listen more than it is to speak, to listen carefully to what's being said and to what's not being said by your fellow board members in order to come to a point of agreement. And it's very important to seek buy-in also. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Mr. Kronstadt.
Thank you. I think it's always hard, and sometimes I know people are fearful to express an opinion that could disagree with someone else's opinion. But I think that's a great opportunity. I've been meeting with many neighbors who I don't agree with on everything, but I've learned. We've had discussion on that. Why do you think this is good? Why do you think this is good? And I think that discussion is really what's needed. That's the whole point. I may be on one side, and my constituents may feel different, and I want to hear from them. I want to reach out to them and have these conversations so we can find out, is there a middle ground? Is there compromise? Can we make a wise and thoughtful decision that will benefit everyone? Thank you.
Now a question we'd like each of you to answer again. How will you prioritize between important issues and topics? Obviously, not everything can be done at once, so how will you pick and choose what to support and what needs to wait for a while? Ms. Wethel, we'll begin with you.
Unfortunately, we will not be able to sit in on the budget session I think as it comes to the city council and the goal-setting sessions that take place, that is the time where we truly set the prioritization for the year. It is quite formal. Day-to-day prioritization has to do with taking every conversation that I have with a constituent seriously. It may only be one person's issue, but it is important to them. And so that is why we serve. That is why I believe all of us are here. We want to help to find solutions for our neighbors. And prioritizing is part of what I do. You have to critically think to work in healthcare. And so I do hope that I can lend that skill. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
Look, when you come out and you talk to the community, that's how you figure out what you need to prioritize. The people will tell you what they want, and that's what you follow, what's important to the people that you're serving. You take what they want to happen and how they see fit for their tax dollars to be used, and you take that back to your council members and you discuss it. You take it back to the city manager and you get support for it. Let your community be your guide. If we don't listen to our community, then there's no reason for us to be sitting here. It's up to them to tell us what they want us to do, and not for them to continue to be told later after the fact or read it in the newspaper. Let's discuss with our community first and then build our priorities around what they want and what they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dalton.
Thank you. This is what grassroots means, bringing it back to the most basic level of representation. And Carla said that very well, to listen to the constituents. Once the constituents' will is known, then to go through a prioritization process. And really, our priorities are tied to our hearts, aren't they? They are an extension of our value system. I think one of the finest examples that we have is Imagine Dubuque. And this is the result of grassroots interaction and feedback from the citizens of Dubuque. And it took a long time, months and months. I participated in a number of these events to glean input, raw input from citizens, and then coalesce, filter, distill, and come up with these 7 actionable areas that are being worked on. We also did this at Crescent Community Health Center. I was tasked as the leader of the strategic planning process that laid out the 3 to 5 year plan for that community health center, which is the only health center in an 81-mile radius that does such a superior job of serving the medical and dental needs of underserved and underrepresented constituents in Ward 4 and throughout the region.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Kronstadt.
Thank you. Well, as my fellows have said, we really need to listen to the community. Right now, I know Dubuque has goals and priorities that have been set. That's what they're looking at right now as they plan this next fiscal year, so that we can accomplish goals, set goals and accomplish them, so that we can see progress and growth in this community. We have feedback and we use that to create the initial goals. I think now is just as good a time to continue to gather feedback. Has anything changed in the past year? Has construction expenses gone down or gone up? Let's look at that so we can help also to see what we can accomplish using taxpayer money efficiently. We don't need to create a burden for taxpayers. We want to create a better Dubuque as efficiently as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart.
The city of Dubuque is starting their budget meetings. As part of this, about 4 departments present every night. When I was on the city transit board and on the city human rights commission, I would always go when those departments would present to support my department and see what they're asking for. I'm currently vice chair of the Dubuque Community Police Relations Committee. This group was born out of a memorandum of understanding between the city of Dubuque and Dubuque Branch NAACP. We last updated that memorandum of understanding in 2016 to apply to all city employees and also become the Dubuque Community City Relations Committee. And we had to do a prioritization process, a part of updating that memorandum of understanding. And right now we're working on updating that memorandum of understanding again. So whether you're part of the city itself or other organizations that interact with the city, you always have to do prioritization. I think part of what you're doing when you're doing prioritization in the city government is that you really need to listen to your constituents. You need to reach out to them. You need to be open to feedback. And then at the end of the day, you really got to sit down and talk to whatever group it is that you're working with and figure out what the top priorities are going to be, come to some sort of consensus. And sometimes you just have to vote and see where the votes come out.
Thank you. City council members' work frequently requires members to make difficult decisions that can have lasting impacts in our community, for better or for worse. So what is an example of one past city council decision that has caused you some concern about the city's future? And what's one example of a city council decision that made you proud to be a Dubuquer? Ms. Anderson, we'll begin with you.
Okay, one past city council issue. I would have to say the planning of Five Flag Center. It's a poor decision, mainly because it hasn't accounted for inflation. It's sitting there, you can find the plans online. This is 2022. They recently stated that they want to get together and now they want to see a new feasibility report. It's interesting. I'm interested to see what happens with it, but that's one of the things that concerns me the most. One of the good decisions is for the city to attempt to bring in more diversity to our community. It's making small progress right now, and I hope to see it make better progress. Projects that they do have, I'd like to see them completed in a more timely fashion than what they are. But I'd also like to see more diverse groups working with these projects. I'd like to see the city agree to having more people that look like me in office. Right now, we don't have that. That's a decision. I think it's coming. I've heard it's coming, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dalton.
Thank you very much. The example that I'm going to choose is one that I have been really impressed at the feedback that I've received from my neighbors, and that is the debacle known as the ice skating rink. Now, when that came to, and how that came to be, I don't have enough research on that yet. That predates when I made Dubuque my adopted hometown. But the feedback that I have received from neighbors and Ward 4 constituents has been resounding. One gentleman in particular said, "I'm damned enraged about it." I mean, there's a lot of anger finding out about what the situation is with the ice skating rink after the fact. People feel hurt that this represents a breach of trust, that there was a lack of transparency with how this went down. They feel that it is a great symbol of exclusivity, that it was something that came about because of a very small slice of Dubuque citizens, and that it represents poor long-term fiscal planning, because it was evidently, again, I don't have all of the information, but my constituents have filled me in, that this was done on poor grant. And I'm so proud of the B branch flood mitigation project.
Thank you. Mr. Kronstedt.
Yes, thank you. So last month, I had concerns with the city council and how they voted on a decision to rezone some land, which seems like a very easy thing, an easy decision to make. They were rezoning it from agricultural to industrial. My concern was, as I sat there in here in the city council chambers, I watched neighbor after neighbor after neighbor call in and say, hey, we have more questions. We don't want to see this go. Can we talk about this more? And instead, the city council voted, they passed it, rezoned it to industrial, and are planning to use $500,000 to $750,000 in order to fund a consultant to draw up this industrial center that neighbors have said they do not want. On the positive side, I have really enjoyed the variety of events that the city of Dubuque had put on. We're starting to get back, and I would like to see if we can have some more events at parks. I've had some great time meeting new friends and taking the kids out to also meet new playmates. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart.
I agree with the three votes that Carla and Hillary and Eric have brought up. I actually watched that same city council meeting you just mentioned, Eric. I went to high school with those people who were calling in, and the city council was like, well, we have to vote to answer these people's questions. And I was like, you can't answer their questions before you vote to rezone the land? I was really taken aback by that vote too. I also have heard through the scuttlebutt many of the same things that Carla and Hillary mentioned about both Five Flags and the ice arena, how it came to be, well, I was actually in Dubuque at the time, but like how it came to be built and how it's kind of sinking now and how the management has kind of gone away. And then with Five Flags, I did watch the work session that was on it, but I agree, the financials need to be updated. And I also have some questions about the business plan. I know that they're hoping remodeling, they'll go from 4,000 to 6,000, but I don't know, does that think we'll be able to go from attracting the Nelly to attracting the Roddy Rich? But in terms of what I'm proud of, I'm really glad that the council endorsed the decision by the management of the airport to rename the terminal after Tuskegee Airman Robert Martin.
Yes. Thank you. Ms. Wethel.
I know that sidewalks aren't necessarily on the top of anybody's discussions on a routine basis, but one evening that I sat in the chambers, there were a number of very passionate and concerned citizens about the decision to put sidewalks in. I was actually pretty moved. I'm concerned about the decision because it's a hard one. And at the end of the day, I feel that everyone was heard. There's decisions that need to be made, I think, in the future with something like this that is more universal. Possibly across the city, we create a plan to instill sidewalks throughout the city. But it was a difficult night. It's difficult to see your neighbors upset and struggle for good reason. I actually am pretty proud of the decision-making process of the Council on Five Flags. We have to do something. That something is going to be millions of dollars, whether it is to rehabilitate the existing structure or if it is to expand the existing structure. We all want a vibrant downtown, and I think that an updated cost estimate must be the first choice. Deciding on the specific plan was conducted the other evening. I fully support the plan to put it to the choice of the voters. And I think at this point, the council has actually done quite a good job of making that decision.
Thank you. The relationship between City Council and connected groups has been on the minds of those who are sending us questions. So again, we have 2 questions related to that topic, and we'll split who gets one. So the first question, we'll begin with Ms. Dalton, is what should the relationship between City Council and the Chamber of Congress be in an ideal world? And how do we get there if we're not already at that point?
The question is, how does the city council get along, relate with the Chamber of Commerce, correct?
Right, what would the best possible relationship
Right.
be?
I've received lots of feedback from constituents about this point also, and they want more transparency, and that's their first desire. Secondly, more transparency, and then finally, third, they want more transparency. People don't like to be shut out. They don't like to find out that a deal has gone down after the fact. It smacks of under-table, backroom, through cigar smoke kind of deals when the public is not well-informed and brought to the table, invited to be brought to the table when something goes on between the city government representing them and the business world. So that relationship is one that needs to be curated with great care and with an eye on being fully forthcoming about any of the legal ramifications, knowing who the deal makers are, who the players are, and especially those individuals or companies who are standing to benefit personally or directly from that relationship. People really want to know, and I'm impressed with their desire and passion to speak out about that.
Thank you. Mr. Kronstadt, same question. What should the relationship between City Council and the Chamber of Commerce be, and how do we get there if we're not already there?
Thank you. Well, I think this is, always I would say sometimes a sensitive subject. We want communication first and foremost. That's what we need for strong relationships, and that's how we build trust. But being able to build that trust, you have to be able to give a little and take a little. So there has to be back and forth, and like Hillary said, for that trust to be established, there needs to be transparency. I think that there's always room to grow relationships, especially like this, and when it can affect many goings on in the city, it's very important that we have a good relationship there. Thank you.
The next question that the other candidates will answer, beginning with Ms. Stewart. Are there barriers to citizen input to departments, commissions, and city council meetings? And if there are, how can those barriers be rectified?
I think sometimes people don't always feel comfortable speaking up or advocating for themselves. That's, what I try to do in talking to various people. Right now, just the fact of going through a pandemic can be a barrier to having, citizen input or citizen participation. I mean, the city council meetings are open, but I know they still try to limit how many people are in the city council chambers. You can watch them at home. That's what I do. I watch the city council meetings at home. But and you can also take part via GoToMeeting and enter your comments via GoToMeeting or email. But if you're not as good with technology or not as committed, that does limit your input in some ways. So I know we're all hopeful that someday this pandemic will end and we'll be able to be a little bit more open. But until then, I think we really do have to focus on meeting people where they are and going to people and trying to just talk to people, hear them, and try to gather citizen input wherever they may be. And just bearing in mind that not everyone's comfortable doing things remotely and might not be able to advocate for themselves in the ways that we have things set up right now.
Thank you. Ms. Wethel, same question.
Lisa, could I ask you to repeat that question?
Absolutely.
Thank
Are
you.
there barriers to citizen input to departments, commissions, and city council meetings? And if so, how can they be rectified?
I think we need to start by building from the ground up. And when I say that, I guess there's a number of ways that I mean it. One is that I believe that you demystify our city council and our departments by starting with our young children in our community so that they understand this community belongs to them. Maybe that means now that we are through parts of the pandemic, that we are more able to travel and tour, that we allow children and those in our community, whether it's groups, to come and be part of those commissions, part of those meetings. I think demystifying it truly starts with reaching out and not expecting people to come to you. And so I think in the future, whether it is for a commission or the general knowledge of how the city council or city government or maybe even county government works, let's create a plan so that we can include everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
These are the barriers that I see. The first one would be lack of information. Half of the ward doesn't get any information at all as far as what's going on. Unless I come through and I'm like the town crier saying, hey, did you know this? Did you know that? They usually don't know. They aren't all that tech savvy. And some of them don't even have access to a computer. They have to go to the library. If they can't get the information, they can't communicate with the commissions or the city council. There's a lack of representation. The people I've spoken with said, hey, they're not going to listen to me because there's no one that looks like me. This is the Black community, the Marshallese community, the Latinx community. Nobody looks like them, so they feel unheard. People being shuffled around. When you fill out paperwork for any services in this town, it's incredible the amount of paperwork they have to fill out. 12 to 13 pages that they have to navigate, language barriers, nobody to tell them how to do it. And when they ask for help, they're shuffled around. At that point, there's nobody answering phone calls. This is a barrier that can be overcome by putting more people in more places that are willing to take their time and hold a hand if necessary for people to get the services that they need. Thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't get my mask off. Now we'd like to turn our attention to more specific issues and policies. So again, we're going to split the question into two parts. Mr. Kornstedt, you have the first question, or you will begin with the first question. And that is, would you have voted to give city incentives for Hormel and Clower additions as the city council did?
I'm sorry, could you just repeat the question
Sure.
one more time?
I'm sorry, that was a little fast. Would you have voted to give city incentives for Hormel and Clower as the city council recently did?
Okay, thank you. To answer that question simply, yes, I would have voted to give them incentives. Clower has been a staple for sure in this business. I know them a little better. I interviewed with them. I almost worked there. I ended up taking another job, but they were really nice to me. I can tell that they know the people that work for them and treat them respectfully, and so I am very happy to see them continue to stay here and expand. I don't know Hormel as well personally, but I am very happy to continue to keep this diversity of businesses, so we have big business and small businesses. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart.
Yes, I also would have voted to give them incentives to keep them in the community. I think it is important to keep manufacturing and industrial jobs in Dubuque or located around Dubuque. Clower is a business that has been here for a long time. Hormel doesn't have as deep roots, but it's also been here at least a few decades. And so I think it was important to keep both businesses within Dubuque.
Thank you. The other three candidates will be asked the question, how can the city support small, locally owned businesses as well as larger companies that are located or headquartered elsewhere? And if you have to choose between small local companies and larger companies, again, that are headquartered in other places, I'm having a very difficult time saying the word headquartered tonight. I'm not sure why. How would you make that choice? So basically, how do you balance the need for small local businesses as well as larger corporations that aren't necessarily from Dubuque? We'll start with Ms. Wethel, if my question made any sense.
It's okay. I suppose that this is the meat and potatoes of city council. This is how we acknowledge that we want our small business owners to stay and to be established for the future. Larger companies will be a necessity for us. Either way, I believe this goes back to workforce. And so supporting those individuals, whether it's a small business or a large employer, we must create workforce in our community. We cannot create that workforce if we do not encourage Dubuquers who are here to give them a quality of life that they enjoy, that makes them want to stay. And in order to recruit others to fill those jobs, we must make Dubuque what she really can be in the future. That's part of the reason I'm running. I'm passionate about Dubuque, but I see in her future her greatest years ahead. For both small business and large business, we have to come together and embrace them both and value them both. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
I think the main way that small businesses can be supported is, number one, provide affordable childcare. People want to work, but they can't afford the childcare, nor can they find decent childcare. That's a priority. You want to build a workforce, take care of the little ones first. Secondly, if there's a small business in town, stop trying to put it under the city banner. Let a small business operate without having to be under the city of Dubuque's thumb. It's okay not to. Third, as far as small businesses are concerned elsewhere or larger businesses, I think if you take care of the businesses here first, we can worry about the other companies later. You take care of the business that pays you. And right now it's our small businesses that are trying to make it, our mom and pop shops that are trying to make it. But if we don't have the affordable health care, we're just gonna fall apart right now. And I've talked to plenty of moms who said that they want to go back to work, many with degrees, and they can't even afford to go back to work right now. So that's how you will start off supporting the small businesses.
Thank you. Ms. Dalton.
Thank you. So going back to your original question, to my mind, it's not an either or business, large or small business, but my answer is going to focus specifically on smaller local businesses. We're all fatigued. We've had enough of the pandemic. We know this, and our small businesses have really borne the brunt economically of the pandemic. We know this. I think the very best thing that we can do to support our local businesses is to change our buying habits, is to cut back on buying online, is to cut back on going to big box stores and focus on those, getting as many of our disposable goods, our arts pieces, our house plants our wooden carpenter's clamps right here in businesses that were started by Dubuque entrepreneurs and desperately need consumer dollars for them to be able to keep their doors open. So as the consumers, to bear our part of that burden by changing our shopping habits and buying locally. I will say that it's a point of great pride for us as the Community Development Advisory Commission to have authorized grants for small businesses throughout the pandemic.
Thank you. So we've all had a fairly civil discourse here tonight, which I appreciate, but unfortunately not everyone is civil or kind in talking to each other or with reaching out to their representatives in various ways. So we'd like to provide you each with a scenario and have you talk to us about how you might react. Again, two of you will be getting one scenario and the other three another. So beginning with Ms. Stewart, you've just returned home after a long day and you've noticed that you received dozens of angry emails, texts, and phone calls from constituents who have great concerns about an issue you'll be voting on next week. Most of them are civil, but a number of them make you fairly uneasy. There are no direct threats, but it's getting there. How would you respond?
Well, first of all, my neighbor is a police officer. So even if there were direct threats, I probably wouldn't feel too unconcerned because I would, if anyone actually did come to my house and threaten me, I'd just go next door. But in all seriousness, I would read through them all, and I would probably just ignore anything that was insulting, but I would try to look at what was actually expressing an opinion or a point of view. And what I would mean is, again, I have a Facebook page. Sometimes people write things on my Facebook page that are just kind of vile comments. But sometimes once you get past the vile comment, they might actually have like a point of view that they're expressing beyond that. And so I just kind of skip past the vile comment part, and then I look at, okay, what is the actual public input part here that I need to focus on? And so that's what I try to focus on, and just not pay attention to what's the insult, because like if you can, sometimes people will just like say an insult before they like actually get to what their grievance is or what their thought is, and their thought or their grievance, that's what you need to try to focus on. And not, the other stuff.
Thank you. Ms. Wethel.
This is actually part of the reason I wanted to run for city council. I feel that for my children, I need to show and demonstrate to them and to my community that civility is not gone. Usually when people reach out with anger or hate, it is because of a deep-seated or rooted issue that troubles them. Maybe it's a particular thing that affects their family profoundly, and it's my duty as a city councilwoman to address that for them. Sometimes it's just to listen, and even if I do not personally agree, I do think that it's important that everyone be heard. As a healthcare worker during the pandemic, I will tell you that this is not foreign to me. But I have found that in conversations that I demonstrate care and concern, I am able to reach out to people in a new way. Sometimes it even surprises me. I hope that I'm able to do this. I don't think it's too sunny of a perspective, but I don't want to give up on civility, and I think I am able to take part in my city government in a way that can be effective to reignite a passion for it.
Thank you. The question or the scenario that we'd like Ms. Anderson, Ms. Dalton, and Mr. Cronstedt to answer is basically the flip of that. You learn that another member of City Council is receiving a barrage of angry messages from constituents, and it's related to an issue that you're voting on next week. While no threats are made, you are shocked at the content. And you disagree with the council member who's receiving these messages on the issue at hand. How do you respond, Ms. Anderson?
Well, I definitely have empathy for the council member, whether I disagreed or agreed. I think at that point in time, our personal disagreeing has to take a back seat and take concern for the correspondence that he has received. And you have to look at it and see if there's a credible threat. If there's a credible threat, then there's the proper authorities to notify. Again, your differences take a back seat. It's okay to agree to disagree. And I think people have to understand that we're human beings. We're not always going to disagree, and we're not always going to agree with our constituents as well. Sending an improper email, depending on that email, number one, it could be a crime. So that also has to be looked at. And if it is a crime, again, we report to the proper authorities. If it's something that requires a response, I don't think it would be up to me to respond, but I can guide the fellow council member on how to respond. And not in my way. They'd have to respond in a nicer way. And just kind of understand where the other person is coming from, because they do have the right to voice their opinions. So we also have to understand the First Amendment right. You have the right to voice your disagreement. What you don't have the right to do is make threats. That's where the line is drawn. And the council member, I would advise to take the threats seriously, report it.
Thank you. Ms. Dalton?
So, everyone there watching from home, you're seeing a real-time enactment of lockstep agreement between two candidates. I could not possibly agree with Carla more. It's like you read my mind. If my colleague on the council were the recipient of vile, rude, hateful, slanderous communication, I would be there to empathize for them, to empathize with them. There is a line, though, for particular kinds of speech, and there is no tolerance, and indeed some communication does constitute hate speech, and threatening speech can also cross the line and require the FBI to get involved. And there can be no tolerance for that kind of speech. Yes, people can get angry. Yes, they can get frustrated, resentful, born from a sense of hopelessness, powerlessness, what have you. Understood. Let's talk. Let's talk about this. It doesn't give a person the right, though. It's not a First Amendment right to make threats on an individual's life or to resort to hate speech. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Cronstedt?
Thank you. Well, I think the first thing that I'd want to do is I'd want to talk to that council member. How are you doing? Are you okay? Like, can I come over? Are you concerned for your life? Are you concerned for your family? I think there's a number of questions that have been brought up that need to be asked right away, so we can see, what route needs to be taken. Whether we need to get the authorities involved, or on the other hand, like RSS was saying, a lot of people are reaching out possibly because they are hurt, but there's an underlying issue. I would consider talking with that council member, seeing if I could offer to help respond to some of these emails, possibly call these concerned citizens, and frankly, some of them don't want to say I want to confront them, but I would like to talk with them in person. I find people are much more agreeable to talking in person. So I would like to sit down, see if we could talk to them and find what the issue is, and see if we can just increase understanding for everyone through this process. Thank you.
Thank you. We've heard a lot of talk tonight about the importance of transparency in government, and so it probably shouldn't be a huge surprise that we've had questions on that topic as well. So again, we have two questions, beginning with Ms. Wethel and Ms. Anderson. We'll have one question, and the other three of you will answer another. So Ms. Wethel, City Council has many closed sessions. Do you see a risk in this practice? And if so, how can that risk be reduced?
I'm sorry, could you repeat a risk of what?
Yeah, is there a risk to the closed sessions that City Council has? So sessions where others can't be there and there's no public.
Yeah, so my understanding of closed sessions is that's actually related to Iowa state law. I don't think that it's something that our city council necessarily gets to decide. It has to do with personnel issues, or I believe it has to do with the sale or purchase of land. And so it's actually not something that they make a choice continually to have a specific issue or item go to closed session. I believe that it is quite expressed in the law.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
I think that a closed session, whether it's required by law or not, I kind of don't agree with it because the people's voices aren't heard. It's a closed session, but then you have to read the written version from the Telegraph. And that might not be the case of what really happened. It's abridged. You can also read the Des Moines Register and get more information on a closed session. So if it's closed to the public, it should also be closed to the media. If the media doesn't have access and we don't have access, then it's kept between the council only. Otherwise, I feel that the public has a right to hear what's going on since the decisions concern them. If they don't get a choice in the decisions that's being made for them, they're going to have complaints, they're going to have issues, they're going to reach out. They want answers. So behind a closed door, I don't agree with. I understand it, I just don't agree with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dalton, how do you see the role of small group work sessions in City Council?
Thank you. Small group work sessions with the council are a way of doing a lot of the woodshedding on issues. I'll tie this back to how priorities are set. That whole process, which is, it's a sausage making process, right? And those closed groups are where a lot of the details, the minutia of a particular issue are thrashed out, are discussed, are massaged, reworked, vigorously debated sometimes, and it is not unlike small group sessions within a corporation or with a club. You have subcommittees. It's a way to efficiently get the work done. And I said at the top of our session tonight that one of my top 3 priorities is to demystify how government gets done. And this is something, again, where there can be that lack of understanding on the part of citizens for why there are closed door sessions, why there are small group sessions, and to explain what's going on at that level so that people feel included in it, even though they can't actually be included in it.
Thank you. Mr. Kronstadt, same question.
Could you repeat the question one more time, please?
How do you see the role of where is it? Small group work sessions and city council.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think sometimes as a smaller group, it gives you a little bit more time, I would say, a little more opportunity to flush out details. When you're working with a larger group, if you've ever worked on a larger group project, it takes a little bit longer to get through all the details. So I think having the small group sessions, I think, helps to just help the ideas flow a little bit better and to maybe make it a little bit more concise. So then, if the issues then come back to the city council, there's people that are, I would say, a little bit more expert on it already who may be able to help explain it. Thank you.
Ms. Stewart.
The role of small group work sessions is to allow various members of the city council to get more done. So they can divide up into small groups, and those groups can focus on specific issues, and then they have the work sessions on those issues or projects. And then when they come back and have their full group meetings, they're able to report on the work that they've done. So rather than everything having to be worked on by the full council, it's kind of a divide and conquer approach. So they're able to take on, again, specific projects and do them within their small groups, bring them back, and get more done within the same amount of time.
Thank you. Our last question of the night, everybody will answer before we go to closing remarks. And we begin with Ms. Anderson. What can the council do to promote racial equity and racial justice in the city of Dubuque? More specifically, what steps would you like to see taken to address systemic racism in our city?
First and foremost, they need to admit that it exists, and not just with the media tongue. They need to come out and say, we have a problem. If the ACLU has been here a few times, and it's written that there is a racist problem in Dubuque, don't hide behind it. Acknowledge it, say you want to do better, and actually do better. Coming to classrooms and saying that you want to see more diversity, or you're working on implementing it, doesn't mean it's happening. Since I've been here, I have not seen it happening. It's slow coming, but it's talked about every single day. It's the in thing to talk about. When the city people tell you that, yes, there may be a problem, and you send people out into the neighborhoods and they come back and tell you, no, there's not a problem, that's a problem. So you can't send people out that look like the people that you want to hear from, know the issues, and have somebody come back and say, well, hey, nobody said anything to me. There's nothing going on. We all know it's there. Nobody wants to talk about it. This is a very racist town. Let's call it what it is. I've been told to go back where I come from. I'm not from Africa, people. I was born in Illinois. Yet this rude person took that 5 seconds to say that to me. I've stood up and I've said, at other forums, this is the most racist city I've been in, not knowing Mrs. Van Milligan was sitting in the audience. So it's not that I haven't said the quiet part out loud, I say it very loudly. To have more diversity, let people that don't look like you come in the door and work. Don't hide behind the desk.
Ms. Dalton.
I was just thinking about this last night, and things seem to flow, at the end of the day. It's one thing to speak inclusivity. It's one thing to speak equity, one thing to speak diversity. It's a whole other matter to put that into play, because hearts and minds have to change, because it's the hearts, the minds that have formed the attitudes that have created the policies that have created systemic racism in our community. And it's one thing for a person to be included, brought to the table. But are they meant to feel comfortable and that they actually do belong? And that's something that has to happen on the personal level with every one of us. It's not so recent. It is not at all recent in our history in the city that there were cross burnings. We're not talking 19th century. We're not talking early or mid 20th century. We're talking about, something that everybody in this room can remember. And it's outrageous. There's no place for it. And we need to get very serious about walking the walk that we keep talking about, and speaking up if and when we ever see something done or said that flies in the face of being inclusive and equitable to our brothers and our sisters. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kronstadt.
Thank you. It's a tough issue. As I've met with neighbors, I've seen people and talked with them who are wondering, because like Carla said, I look different from them. They were very hesitant to talk to me, but I know there's a lot of deep-seated trust that has been broken here in this city. We're not treating people with love, kindness, and respect, and we're not treating people fairly, and we're not. Yeah, we're just not treating others as we expect ourselves to be treated, and I would like to see that change here on this city council. It's been a slow change, and I don't think that it needs to be a slow change. I think we need to get out there, get the communication, and start trying to rebuild this trust that was broken. Many people either see law enforcement sometimes as they either don't do their job or that they're going to come for me. So I have concern with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart.
Hi. As a historian, I know that where 8th Street runs into University used to be an African-American neighborhood that was gotten rid of during urban renewal. It's now parking lots and a billboard. And probably not many people knew that was an African-American neighborhood up until probably about 1940s, 1950s. Everyone assumes we had a very low population of African-Americans in Dubuque, even though over the years it's gone up and down. As I mentioned, I serve in the Dubuque Community Police Relations Committee, whose whole point is to improve relations between the police and minority communities. My phone is on 24 hours a day, and I sometimes get calls. I do a lot of work in the Latino community, and I sometimes get calls from people who are calling the police because they need the police to come to their house, but they call me to also come to their house because as a person of color, they feel safer knowing that there's a white person outside their house when the police come to their house. And this is a true story, I'm not exaggerating. And I go and I sit outside their house. I don't interfere with the police in any way. I'm just there to make that person feel comfortable calling the police. Again, because as Latinos in a minority community, And this is not even a reflection of Dubuque Police at all. I supported Dubuque Police. I back the blue. But sometimes people who are in a minority community just need to know members of the majority will be there to bear witness for them and make sure they know nothing's going to happen for them when they call the authorities.
Thank you. Ms. Wethel.
Carla, I'm so sorry that happened to you. No one should experience what Carla experienced, period. I do not condone racist rhetoric, hate speech, or harassment, whether it be in the workplace or in public in our city. I've spoken to my 3 children about that, and what they witnessed themselves is troubling to me, and they're white, as is 92% of Dubuque. This will not change unless people sitting at this table take action to be inclusive. And I know inclusive is a word that is overused, but I tell you this, we must open doors. That means opening doors for everyone. We must be present, and we must advocate. We will not make change unless people that look of all color step up and do their part, whether that is calling out inappropriate comments in a social gathering or in front of children, whether that is supporting a coworker who you feel like is being discriminated against, or whether you are witness to harassment or hate speech. It is all of our responsibility. I hope to be that person for my children, but I hope to be that person for our community in decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now give you each 2 minutes for closing remarks. We're going to start from the other end this time, so you can actually keep your mask off, Ms. Wethel. We're giving you first the 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you, Lisa. Let me begin by saying I am not running for Dubuque City Council because I believe it to be broken. I want to help make it better than it has ever been. We move back to build our future. And I feel strongly that Dubuquers who are here want to have an enhanced quality of life so that they can stay and enjoy what our fruitful community has, whether it is the bluffs of the Mississippi, the river, our trails, our bike paths, or our communities. With that in mind, I feel that there are 3 goals that I think must be addressed. One is a strong economy. Again, you cannot have that without a strong workforce. I'll reiterate that I think building Dubuque as a community of choice is a huge piece of this puzzle. Police and fire personnel need the equipment, the training, in order to be safe in their jobs and to keep us safe. Daycare, housing, indoor, outdoor recreation, valuing our historic structures and ensuring their integrity for decades to come. Nurturing of the arts is a big part of why I love Dubuque. And I think unless we show value to the arts, they'll go away. But it's what makes us great. Continuing public, private, and non-for-profit partnerships has done well for Dubuque and truly set us apart from cities in the Midwest. We must continue to put these people at the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart.
As you've probably noticed, I've been wearing a face shield all evening. I have a non-visible disability. Some people joke it makes me look like a welder, but that's okay. I'm happy to be associated with any of the tradespeople. I support all of them. I'm running for the 4th Ward position on the Dubuque City Council because I think the decisions at the local level affect citizens just as much and even more so than the national politics do. I think I have analytical problem-solving skills and communication skills that would benefit the citizens of this ward. I call this the heart of Dubuque. I have a strong sense of pride in community sustainability and livability. I am particularly interested in linking preservation of the historic built environment with sustainable conservation of natural environments or green infrastructure, all of which I see as connected to social justice. As I've said, as we need to make sure that as we redevelop this area, we make sure it stays livable and that there is affordable childcare next to affordable housing. I know how to read a budget and, more importantly, how to live on one. I have knowledge of city and state organizations and processes and the political system. I'm not running to represent a specific group or interest, but because I want all residents to feel heard. I want to reach out to people who don't feel involved in the city right now, who don't feel like city government is responding to them. I think Dubuque has done a good job of preserving the historical beauty of our city and that the overall economic recovery is going well, but we need to continue to improve employment and recreational opportunities in Dubuque as we continue to recover from the pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Kronstadt.
Thank you. First, I'd just like to say thank you to the League of Women Voters for having this. It's been really good to get this discussion out in front of the voters here. Just to reiterate, I'm running because I love Dubuque. My wife and I live here with our 4 kids. I grew up initially in Wisconsin. I met my wife here in Dubuque, going to college. We moved out to Seattle, and at some point we wanted to move and buy a house and raise our family and really settle down. And we could have moved anywhere, but because of our time here going to college, we moved back here. We just love the size of the city. We love what's the city is doing, and I would like to see that continue to grow. In recent years, I've seen so many small businesses open as well as larger businesses, and I just love seeing that our community is continuing to provide new jobs and new options for the everyday consumer. I know that during this transitional time, many people may be still recovering from a lost job, or they may be adjusting to the new rising prices on everyday goods. And I really want to keep this in mind as we move forward and think about what's most important for our community now. Everybody has a voice, and I would like to hear as many as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dalton, your closing remarks.
Thank you. As a child growing up in the Intermountain West, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, whom I loved, adored, and worshiped, and they did me too. I know for a fact that I was their favorite grandchild. And I loved sitting under my grandfather's desk, who was the justice of the peace, as he would receive his neighbors to come in and bringing their concerns, and would marry young couples across the street at the park. And that's where I got my first taste of what public service means. My grandfather was a man of absolute integrity and humility, and was beloved by his community. I told you a little bit at the top of our session about some of my personal life. I'll tell you this, that having been involved as a public servant in this city that I have taken to my heart and who has taken me to their heart has been one of the greatest blessings of my adult life. And I chose to apply to be a commissioner because not only for myself, because I wanted to be a voice at the table, but I wanted to show the little children in my neighborhood. And this is a shout out to Maurice and RJ and Naya. It's getting close to your bedtime. These are my favorite little neighborhood children. I wanted them to see somebody who is looking out for their best interests. And I encourage everybody who's been watching us tonight to consider getting involved and being a public servant. We have so much need on our commissions for people to step in and help share the burden. And that's what local governance is, everybody sharing the burden. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
First of all, thank you to the League of Women Voters. This was a great opportunity to hear what everyone else had to share. I think for me, I take Masterpiece on the River to heart. Dubuque is a beautiful city, and not everybody has racial biases. We have a lot of allies in our presence. What we have is a lack of trust. A lot of people don't trust who doesn't look like them. That's in any community, not just the Black community, Latinx community, or the Marshallese community. My job is to bridge all the gaps that we have out here. And how I will do that is I will have a bi-weekly newsletter for everybody in the Fourth Ward. I'll have town hall meetings quarterly. You cannot disagree with somebody if you have a mouthful of food. I'll have virtual meetings if necessary. Point being, I'm accessible. I look forward to working with anyone who wants to work with me, but I'm not a rubber stamp. Look, friends, diversity is not just a buzzword to me. I best represent the diverse perspective of the Fourth Ward. I have the experience. I've lived the experience, and I walk in those shoes. I don't believe any other candidate can say the same. What I'm saying is, let's put in a diverse person. Let's prove to the city and to everyone else that we are a diverse city. When you vote March 1st and again March 29th, I'm asking you to vote Carla Anderson to bridge the gaps and to believe in a better Dubuque. Thank you.
Thank you all. The Dubuque League of Women Voters thanks all of the candidates for their participation. This forum may be seen again on City Channel Dubuque, on Cable Channel 8, or Digital 117.2. It's being streamed live on the City Facebook page and website. Thank you to the City Cable Channel for providing this service. I'd like to thank the voters for watching and for providing us with the questions for tonight. Residents of the Fourth Ward, please remember to vote on March 1st and again on March 29th for the two winners of the March 1st primary. The League of Women Voters will hold another candidates forum on Monday, March 14th for those two candidates. And if you'd like to join the League or support any of our activities, please reach out to us via Facebook or email us at leagueofwomenvotersdbq@gmail.com. Thank you and good evening.